again from the Augusta branch, way down in Augusta, Missouri. Today is where we will be talking about our September block, which will be Faithful Companion, also known as Seaman. We were trying to figure out a block to represent Lewis and Clark, and a canoe did not sound nearly as much fun as doing a dog. So if you want to do a canoe, you go for it, but I went with the dog. So today's block is a Seaman, Faithful Companion. Currently he is eyeless, but you know, we'll get to that. And then here's the design of Seaman. He looks hard, but he's really not too hard. He has only 2 half square triangles, one here, and then he's primarily he's monochromatic in this block, and a little bit of water here and here to get the Columbia River or one of those rivers that they went down. And then here is the longboat right here. And at the end, if you desire, you can embroider the name Seaman up here in the corner or over here, and or you could do a compass. Find a compass. I give you this compass, but if there's another one you like better, you can embroider a compass there showing that he's looking west, heading out to the Oregon coast for the adventure. So here's Seaman, and this is kind of how you do the block. First of all, there are a lot of pieces to this block, but do not be overwhelmed. Like with most of these blocks, you just kind of tackle it a piece at a time, a section at a time, just like housework, section at a time. Don't look at the whole house, it's bad, but if you just tackle each room, better. So here is each block as we go along. First of all, we have, I'll start with the body. The body, the difference between the 2 blocks. Monochromatic dog, and I decided to do a patchwork version for this one just to see what it looked like. It's a little busier. It doesn't stand out quite as well as a dog, but I think once it's all together, I think it will look just fine. So if you and your fabric don't have a really strong color that you'd like to make your block monochromatic, or all your dark colors, feel free to use some pieces from all of your fabrics that you've been using on your block so far, and maybe toss in a couple new ones. Like I found this little blue check at home that I had one, so I just stuck it in there because it looked all right. So mix it up. So you can do a patchwork style where you don't feel, oh my gosh, I don't have black or a nice dark to make that version. You can do a kind of a version that uses all of the fabrics that you've been using so far in all the other blocks. So don't let that worry you. It'll look just cute, so don't worry. It's a symbol of the dog, not the dog. I just happen to have a lot of blacks to make that other one. And of the 2, for me, I kind of like the monochromatic one a little bit better, but this one is not sewn together yet, so I might like this one just as well. So I'm showing you the block using the patchwork colors today, or the different colors. Alrighty, so just tackle, after you cut everything out, and the paperwork pretty much identifies where each piece should go. Get out your trusty design board and kind of, as you cut, just lay it out so that you know where the pieces go. Each section is kind of identified. For example, here's the body, and it's 15 2-inch squares. You just kind of randomly place them. And in the case of the monochromatic dog, I just mixed it up so that no 2 same prints were touching each other, same as I did here. So just 2 different ways to do that. So that's one section, that's your body. Another section is the longboat and the water. And so this is the brown for the boat, and then the water. And I happened to find a great water fabric for here and for here, which kind of worked all right. And the only thing interesting about this is that you snowball this little corner of this section. And that's not too hard. You guys know how to do that. This part, I'll go up to here. This is the muzzle and the nose. And for this one, you just take 4 2-inch squares and you snowball this one to get this look right here. And you actually have to put a nice little black nose or pink nose, whatever, right here. And that's also snowballed. Not hard. So once you do all the snowballing and sew this together, then you add this little background white piece. Then you add this piece, and that's your muzzle and nose section. So that's done. Okay. This next one, it's probably a trickier one, but just once again, just view it as a section. So here's the big ear, and you want to pick a fabric that's going to kind of stand out. Like I picked my darkest fabric that was different. I didn't use it anywhere else, the same as I did on my monochromatic dog. I just did one color, one fabric that I didn't use anywhere else, so it stood out pretty well. And I did not use this fabric anywhere else, so it stands out pretty well. And this is the earpiece, and it's just a little bit of snowballing. You snowball a little bit on the two ends here. You snowball a little bit bigger piece here, and that kind of makes the ear. And then you're kind of finishing up this head part. So you're sewing 3 2.5-inch squares here, and your second half square triangle. So there they are. There's the 2 half square triangles, the one here and one here. So half square triangle here is just one of your dog colors with your background. And you're going to make these and trim it down to 2 inches, and you're not going to use one of them, so put one of them aside. And then you just kind of sew all this together, sew all this together, and then sew these 2 halves together. And then your earpiece is done, okay? It's not too bad. This section is the back of the neck that kind of goes right here on the dog. So this back of the neck section uses your other half square triangle, and you want this blue is going to be your water, because you can see the kind of the horizon of the water. The one thing I did wrong on this one, I didn't turn it the right way so it matched the wave, but I made sure I did it on this one. I have straight lines here, and my straight lines go here. So I mean, otherwise I wouldn't have wanted it to have been, well, the other way. Just kind of watch that when you're doing it. You wouldn't want your water to go the other direction. He's kind of going horizontal here, and your water's going vertical here. So whatever you do, just kind of see if you can make the 2 sides of your water kind of match. It's not a big deal, but it's a detail. So on the back of the neck, you have your big piece, snowballed. Make your half square triangle, sew it to a body color, sew that to that. All right? And a big important thing about sewing all of this whole block, and any block with multiple pieces actually, is to use a scant 1/4-inch seam, which is just slightly smaller than a 1/4-inch seam, like a hair, just a little bit, because it's very important to be accurate on this one, because if you're off a little bit, you're off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're off 5 times whatever your error was. So if you can just sew all these little small pieces of, when you're doing patchwork, just a hair below a 1/4-inch. I don't mean like 1/8 of an inch. I just mean like one thread over. Then you'll have a much better chance of being accurate and everything turning out well. So once you get all the rooms cleaned in your house, you got all the sections made, and it's just kind of fun, and it's so much easier if you lay it out on a board like this beforehand and just kind of pin it into place, and then you can kind of take it to your sewing machine, and then you know what to do. I had a lot of kitty cat help last night when I was laying this out, so you know, there is that too. Okay, so then you take your long boat and your muzzle section, and you sew those together. You can kind of see how they fit together pretty nicely. Then you take this back of the neck section and this ear section and sew those together. And then I bet you can guess that you take the body and then sew it to there next. And then you have a big hunk and a littler hunk. So sew those together, and then you just sew the whole thing together. And then the final frosting is just your top piece that goes along the full width of the block. And you will have seaman. He's not hard, just kind of tedious as far as a lot of little pieces. But just remember, the seam allowance is important, and pressing is important. I find when you have a lot of multiple pieces, pressing as you go helps me be more accurate. Like I would probably sew these 5 in a row, then I would press them. Then I would sew these 5, and I would press these row in opposite direction. Then I would just press as I go and pin and press, because I find myself much more accurate when I'm pressing as I go rather than waiting till the end to press all at once, because then you're just not quite as accurate. So there is the Seaman block, the faithful companion. Seaman was one of 21 dogs that left with Lewis and Clark, and the only one that returned. They actually performed surgery on Seaman, because at one point he got bitten by a want to say a badger, but I'm not sure if that's right. Some woodland creature bit him in the neck, severed his artery, and so they actually went in and Lewis and Clark did surgery on him so he would make it, and he made it back home. So he is the only canine that came back, though. And I think they lost a human or two, and all the other dogs. But so Seaman is the faithful companion of Lewis and Clark on that adventure. This is the faithful companion block. I hope you enjoy making him. He was a lot of fun, and I'd love to see all your blocks when you post them on Facebook, and with any little tweaks that you might make to make it your own. That's always fun to see. Like if this compass, you could put the compass here, you could put his name here, you could totally, and I didn't put his eye yet. I haven't decided if I'm gonna just use a button or do some like wool applique yet. I haven't decided on his eye for myself, so not sure on that one. But something that crossed my mind, because I am from the Pacific Northwest before moving to Missouri, you know, a really ambitious person could throw some mountains in the back of this block, but I'm leaving that one up to you because I decided not to, but you easily could, because they were in the mountains, you know, so you could throw some mountains back here if you really wanted to go crazy. But I went for the simple Seaman, sitting in the boat, looking west, hanging out with his friends on the ride. So there you go, Seaman, faithful companion. I remembered my coworker had done a wonderful class with her group of quilters that meets here at our library, and she had done this wonderful class. So it occurred to me that, I wonder if we could do Seaman a different way. So I will leave it there and let my coworker present Seaman option number 2. If you're not into patchwork, but you want to try something else, there's another option out there, and both patterns are included in your handout.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and I work at the Augusta Branch Library in Augusta, Missouri. And I have helped Leslie on this last block for September, and I have the applique Seaman dog. He is not as hard as he looks, and I'm going to give you a quick tutorial on how to do this. So my fabrics that I used were batiks, so I tried to incorporate some of that in there, but I also wanted to show that he was a black dog, which is why mine is so dark. But you can do in whatever colors make you happy. So you will receive a pattern that looks kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. The easiest way I found to do this is to use a light board. Put your paper under there, and I like to lightly trace all around the edges just so I have a little bit of guideline for where I put my pieces after I cut them out. You do not have to do this. When you cut your pieces out, you'll be able to tell where they go. So trace them on fusible bonding stuff. I like the Heat and Bond Light. You just want to make sure you do not use anything that's too heavy. If you use a heavy ultra hold Heat and Bond, you will not be able to sew through it easily with your sewing machine. Your needles will gum up, your thread will break, you will be very sad. But if you do not want to sew through it, then you can use the ultra hold. So after I have my outline traced on my background fabric, I will trace the same pattern onto the Heat and Bond. One thing to remember is if you traced it facing this way on your fabric, up, then when you trace it onto the Heat and Bond, you'll want to trace it in the reverse. Because when you adhere this to your fabric, it will flip your design. So then, just trace each piece on its own. And then move your paper over and trace the next piece. You do not want to trace it all connected to each other because each of your pieces is going to be a different color of fabric. And you don't want to cut these out right on the lines because then it's not very forgiving if you accidentally get off course a little bit. So now you can see I've traced 2 pieces and I've left room in between them. Now another trick you can do to make sure you remember where everything goes is you could go ahead and number this. Number every piece and then number on here. because that's just your paper backing that'll be removed. So then when you cut this out, leave some space around it. This part, you just do real fast. Nothing has to be exact. Then you will adhere this to the color of your choice. It only takes a couple seconds for it to adhere. Do not overheat it or the bonding agent won't work anymore and all your pieces will fall off before you get them sewn down. After this is adhered to your fabric, then you trim around on the lines. Now because it's easy to get off a little bit, I tend to go just a little bit on the outside. So when I line it up with this piece again on my fabric, I have just a little hair extra. So that way if you've cut in a little bit on your fabric, when you line up like your puzzle pieces, you won't have any open spots. So that's what I did here. So that way there's not a lot of bulk in your fabric. You don't have a lot of layers sticking up, which makes it easier to sew through afterwards when you're all done. So just think of it like a puzzle and it goes together really easily. Now when you finish it, you can either do a straight line stitch all the way around, you could do satin stitches all the way around. I have not done anything to this piece yet because I'll probably do that in my final quilting, so it's quilted to the back that way. I'll show you an example. This is my cat. I did the same technique, adhered all the pieces, and then when I did the quilting, I went a straight stitch with invisible thread around it. So it's all tucked in there, it's held on tight. I could add a few whiskers with some thread work. You can do whatever you like. You can see the back kind of shows you what I did. Now, if you really enjoy this technique and you want to do one of your own pets, it's very easy. Use your cell phone, take a picture of your critter. Then you will convert it to black and white in your phone, and you can adjust the contrast. The higher you adjust the contrast, the easier it is to see the lines between the values of color, or black and white. So what I did was I adjusted it, and then I went around with a Sharpie and defined all the different spaces that I wanted to make different values. Then I numbered all of them. So like this one I decided was my lightest, so I gave that a value of 1, value of 2, worked my way up to the darkest. It's up to you how detailed you want to get with this. You can do it with just 4 or 5 different values of color or shades and it'll be just fine. So after I traced around them, then I could see my lines through the back of the paper. So I just retraced it with a marker so it was really easy to make a copy. So then after I made a copy, I knew I wanted him to be larger. So then what I enlarged was just my line drawing. So you can kind of see there. And then I'd already chosen my values of the fabrics, and it was super simple to get ready to go. I had everything marked, and I was able to assign different fabrics, cut them out, fuse them on, and then stitch around them when I was done. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach me at the Augusta Branch Library, or my email is also included on the paper, or just simply Google photo collage quilts and there are tons of tutorials with all different ways of doing it, and you can pick the way that fits best for you. Thank you.